says, "I should never have taught you so well. I did not know how to respond to that." Was it a compliment? An admission? That contract is a big responsibility. Dad continued after a moment. Bigger than anything you have handled before. I know. We are ready for it. Another pause. Then, if you need any advice, you know where to find me. It was the closest thing to an olive branch I could have expected. When I refused, my mother smirked threateningly. Then we will just take it another way. The next day, I discovered my parents filed a legal claim challenging my grandfather's will. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button. If family betrayal stories make your blood boil, growing up, my grandfather was my hero. Every summer from age 8 until I graduated college, I would stay at his house for weeks at a time. He taught me carpentry in his workshop behind the bungalow, showing me how to measure twice and cut once. He would say, "A house is more than walls and a roof, Marcel. It's the memories you build inside it." When Alzheimer's began stealing his mind during his final years, I moved in to care for him. I adjusted my work schedule, taking remote positions so I could be there when he needed me. My parents visited maybe once a month for an hour or two. Jake came by even less, always with an excuse about the kids, or work, or the long drive. I never complained, because I treasured those quiet evenings with Grandpa, even when he sometimes forgot my name. Before his condition worsened, my grandfather updated his will with a crystal-clear instruction: his cherished bungalow would go to me. Marcel, the only person who truly appreciated its history and craftsmanship. He even recorded a video with his lawyer explaining why he wanted me to have it. I never told my family about this recording. I never thought I would need to. My relationship with my family was complicated but functional before this conflict erupted. I always supported Jake despite our different life paths. While I remained single and focused on building my career in software development, Jake married his high school sweetheart Amanda right after graduation. They quickly had 3 kids in 5 years. Twins Thomas and Tyler, now 10, and little Lucy, age 5. Financial struggles followed Jake like a shadow. He bounced between jobs, never keeping one longer than a year. Meanwhile, Amanda worked part-time at a local daycare center. They lived paycheck to paycheck in a small 3-bedroom apartment across town. Throughout our adult lives, our parents subtly but consistently favored Jake. When I bought my first car at 19 with money I had saved from programming internships, my dad said, "You always have it easy, Marcel. When your brother needs a car, we'll have to help him." Jake got a new car for his 19th birthday. When I graduated college with honors, my mother said, "Not everyone can afford to focus just on school like you did. Your brother has real responsibilities." Despite this, I regularly helped Jake and his family. I paid for car repairs, contributed to birthday presents for the kids, and babysat so they could have date nights. Last winter, I fixed their heating system when it broke down during a cold snap. I never complained or asked for recognition. They were family. The dinner party that changed everything happened on a Friday in April. I had been promoted to lead developer at my company with a significant salary increase. I wanted to share the good news with my family, so I invited them all to my house, the beautiful bungalow my grandfather had left me 3 years earlier. I spent days preparing, cleaning every room, and cooking some of my grandfather's special recipes. I even set up the backyard with string lights and a fire pit, knowing the kids would enjoy making s'mores. I was excited to have everyone together, a rare occurrence since they lived 2 hours away and seldom visited. Jake and his family arrived 45 minutes late. The kids immediately ran through the house, while Amanda apologized half-heartedly for their tardiness. Jake barely acknowledged my promotion news, instead complaining about their small apartment and how the twins had to share a bedroom. My parents seemed distracted during dinner, unusually interested in the renovations I had completed. My father asked detailed questions about the square footage, the updates to the electrical system, and the property taxes. At the time, I thought he was just making conversation, or perhaps planning renovations to their own home. As we finished dessert, my father cleared his throat and looked directly at me. "Marcel, your mother and I have been talking, and we think this house would be better suited for a family with children. It is too big for just you." I laughed, thinking he was joking. But his expression remained serious, and my mother nodded in agreement. "Your brother is struggling to raise 3 children in that tiny apartment," my mother added. "It makes more sense for them to live here." The silence that followed was deafening. Jake stared at his plate, uncomfortable but silent. Amanda looked expectantly at me, as if waiting for me to agree. "I think you are misunderstanding something," I finally said. "This is my home. Grandpa left it to me." My father waved his hand dismissively. "Your grandfather would want his great-grandchildren to grow up here, not just you alone. Since your brother has kids, he should get your house." The words hit me like a physical blow. I explained that my grandfather had specifically wanted me to have the house because of our special connection and because I had cared for him when no one else would. That is when my mother leaned forward, a cold smirk on her face. "Then we will just take it another way. You will see." After my family left that night, I sat alone in my grandfather's old armchair, trying to process what had happened. The house, usually so comforting, suddenly felt vulnerable. I could not sleep, replaying the conversation over and over, wondering if I had misunderstood or overreacted. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Sorry about Mom and Dad, but they have a point. The kids really could use the space." Think about it. His message felt like another betrayal, confirming this was not just a spur-of-the-moment suggestion, but something they had all discussed behind my back. Unable to sleep, I went to the small office that had been my grandfather's study. In the bottom drawer of his desk, I found a handwritten letter he had given me shortly before his death. I had read it many times before, but that night his words took on new meaning. "Marcel, this house has been in our family for 3 generations. I am entrusting it to you because you understand that a home is more than just a financial asset. It is a keeper of memories, a sanctuary. Some may question my decision, but I know you will honor the spirit of this place. Stand firm in what you know is right. Your grandfather, Edward." The next morning I was making coffee when I heard the mail slot open. A thick envelope fell to the floor. Inside was a formal legal notice informing me that my parents had filed a petition challenging my grandfather's will, claiming he lacked the mental capacity to make sound decisions when he wrote it. The document included allegations that shocked me to my core. They claimed I had manipulated my grandfather during his illness, isolated him from family, and coerced him into changing his will in my favor. None of this was true. My hands shook as I read their demands that the will be invalidated and the house be placed in control of my father as executor of the estate. I immediately called Thomas Bradford, a local attorney who specialized in estate law. After reviewing the documents, he delivered the bad news. "They have clearly been planning this for months, Marcel. They have affidavits from 2 distant relatives claiming your grandfather seemed confused about his assets in the year before his death. They have even gotten a statement from a part-time caregiver who worked with him briefly." "But the will is clear," I protested. "And he was of sound mind when he wrote it." His doctor confirmed it. "Challenging wills on grounds of mental incompetence is complicated," Thomas explained. "Even with a clear will, these cases can be difficult. The courts sometimes favor a compromise that benefits more family members, especially when children are involved." Later that day, I received a call from my childhood friend Damon, who lived in my parents' town. I had not spoken to him in months, but he felt I needed to know, "My folks were at the community center bingo night with your parents last week. They were telling everyone how selfish you are for keeping that big house to yourself while your brother struggles with 3 kids. They are on a campaign, man." Over the next few weeks, the situation spiraled further. Extended family members I barely spoke to began calling, urging me to do the right thing for Jake and the kids. Some suggested I could just buy another house with my good salary. One aunt I had always been close to left a voicemail saying she was disappointed in the man I had become. Social media became a battlefield. Amanda posted photos of the twins sharing their small bedroom with the caption, "If only some people understood family values and the needs of children." My mother's friends commented with sympathy and veiled criticism of me. When I stopped engaging online, my mother posted wondering if I had something to hide. The isolation grew as mutual family friends took sides. People I had known all my life suddenly viewed me as selfish and cold-hearted. Few knew or seemed to care about the years I had spent caring for my grandfather, or how he had specifically wanted me to have his home. Meanwhile, the legal battle drained my savings. I had to pay a specialized attorney cover filing fees and gather evidence to prove my grandfather had been mentally competent. The stress affected my work performance, putting my recent promotion at risk. My boss called me in for a private conversation, concerned about my decreased productivity and frequent absences for legal meetings. I began having anxiety attacks, something I had never experienced before. Sleep became elusive, and when I did manage to drift off, I would wake suddenly, thinking I heard someone in the house. The home that had once been my sanctuary now felt like contested territory. During this period, I noticed small things amiss around the house. My grandfather's antique pocket watch disappeared from the display shelf. A framed photo of him teaching me to fish was no longer on the mantel. With horror, I realized these items had likely been taken during my parents' last visit before they made their demands known. Checking my spare key hiding spot outside, I found it missing. I remembered my mother asking to borrow a key to let herself in early for the dinner party. She had never returned it. The situation escalated when I began noticing unfamiliar cars driving slowly past my house. Twice, I came home from work to find footprints in the garden beneath windows. Someone was casing my home, and I had little doubt who had sent them. The true breaking point came 4 months into the legal battle. My attorney called with devastating news he had uncovered during discovery. "Marcel, I found something you need to see. Your parents have significant gambling debts from an Atlantic City casino. They remortgaged their home last year and are 3 months behind on payments." I sat down struggling to process this information. My conservative church-going parents, who had always lectured about financial responsibility, were gamblers on the verge of losing their home. "There is more," Thomas continued. "I found emails between your father and a real estate developer from 6 months ago discussing the potential sale of your property. They were estimating they could get nearly twice its assessed value because of the large lot and historical features." The pieces suddenly clicked into place with sickening clarity. This was never about Jake and his kids. My parents needed money to cover their debts and avoid foreclosure. They planned to take my house, sell it to developers who would likely tear it down and pocket the proceeds. Jake and his family were just convenient pawns in their scheme. Thomas confirmed my suspicions. The developers specifically mentioned demolishing the existing structure to build luxury townhomes. And from what I can tell, your brother has no idea about their financial troubles or the plan to sell. That evening, I called Jake, determined to reveal the truth. But before I could explain, he interrupted with his own news. "Mom and Dad gave us a key to your place. They said you agreed to let us start moving some things in while you look for an apartment. Amanda is there now, with the kids measuring for curtains." I nearly dropped the phone. What I never agreed to. Anything like that. But Mom and Dad said the lawyers were working out details, and you had agreed in principle. They said it would be easier if we started the transition now. I hung up and drove home at dangerous speeds, my heart pounding with rage and disbelief. When I arrived, I found not just Amanda and the kids, but my parents as well. A small moving truck sat in the driveway. Boxes of their belongings filled my living room. My mother's friend Barb, a locksmith, was changing the front door lock. "What is going on here?" I demanded, barely recognizing my own voice. My father stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder, as if to calm me. "Now, Marcel, we discussed this. The courts are going to award the house to Jake eventually. We are just making the transition smoother for everyone." I shrugged off his hand. "We discussed nothing. This is breaking and entering. This is my house. Not for long," my mother said calmly, from where she was directing the placement of their furniture. "The judge will see reason. A family needs this house more than a single man." The confrontation escalated as I began carrying their boxes back outside. My father blocked my path, while my mother called the local police, claiming I was having a mental breakdown and threatening her grandchildren. The responding officers, who knew my parents from community events, were immediately sympathetic to their side. I found myself physically removed from my own property and told to cool off somewhere else for the night. As I was escorted to my car, my mother delivered the most painful blow of all. "You do not deserve this house, Marcel. You do not even have a family. What do you need all this space for?" To be alone, I checked into a nearby hotel, my mind racing between rage, disbelief, and despair. Around 3 in the morning, sitting on the edge of the bland hotel bed, I had a full-blown panic attack. My chest constricted, I could not breathe, and for several terrifying minutes, I genuinely believed I was dying. When it finally passed, I lay exhausted on the bed, wondering if I should just give up. Maybe they were right. Maybe a family with children deserved the house more than I did. Maybe this battle was destroying me for nothing. As I shifted to turn off the bedside lamp, my wallet fell from the nightstand. A worn photo slipped out, one I had carried for years. It showed my grandfather and me standing proudly beside a bookshelf we had built together. I turned it over and read the inscription he had written, "To Marcel, who understands that the most valuable inheritance is not possessions, but principles. Stand your ground, even against family." In that moment, clarity washed over me. This was not just about a house. It was about honoring my grandfather, about justice, about not allowing myself to be manipulated and bullied by the people who should have supported me. I remembered how my grandfather had stood up to his own brother decades ago when he tried to claim partial ownership of the family business. "I will not be moved," I whispered to the empty room. "This stops now." The next morning, I met with Thomas and explained everything that had happened. His eyes widened as I described the break-in and my forced removal from my own property. "This changes everything," he said. "We can file for an emergency injunction today. Breaking into your house and changing the locks is clearly illegal, regardless of the will dispute." While Thomas prepared the court filings, I took a more aggressive approach to gathering evidence. I contacted my grandfather's long-term physician, Dr. Moreno, who had documented his mental state throughout his illness. She was appalled by my parents' claims and immediately agreed to provide detailed medical records and a sworn statement confirming my grandfather had been mentally competent when he updated his will. I found the video recording my grandfather had made with his lawyer, explaining in his own words why he wanted me to have the house. In it, he specifically mentioned that he was concerned other family members might contest his decision, which is why he was creating this additional documentation. Most surprisingly, I located Meredith Jackson, the part-time caregiver my parents had gotten a statement from. When I explained the situation, she was horrified. "I never signed any statement claiming your grandfather was confused about his assets," she insisted. "I told your mother that Edward always spoke very clearly about wanting you to have his house. He was proud of how you had maintained it. As we built our case, I hired a private investigator who uncovered a pattern of financial manipulation by my parents. They had taken loans from several other family members without repayment. They had used my grandfather's credit card in the months after his death, before the accounts were closed. They had even attempted to access his investment accounts using his personal information. Armed with this evidence, Thomas filed not only for the emergency injunction, but also a restraining order against my parents, preventing them from entering my property or contacting me directly. The judge granted both requests within 24 hours, forcing my parents and Jake to vacate my home immediately. When the police escorted them out, the officers were the same ones who had removed me days earlier, now awkwardly apologetic. As our court date approached, something unexpected happened. Jake called me, his voice subdued and ashamed. "I found something you need to see," he said. "Can we meet somewhere neutral? Just you and me." We met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Jake looked terrible with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated posture. He slid a folder across the table. "I found these in Dad's computer when I was looking for the twins' birth certificates," he explained. "They never intended to give me the house, Marcel. They were going to control everything." Inside the folder were emails between my father and Westbrook Development Company discussing not only the sale of my house, but plans to have Jake and his family live in a modest condo purchased with a small portion of the proceeds. The rest would go to paying off my parents' debts and establishing a trust that my father would control. There were also messages with a lawyer different from the one handling the will challenge, discussing how to structure ownership so Jake would have to get my parents' approval for any future sale or refinancing of the property. "They used my kids as pawns," Jake said, his voice breaking. "They used me, and I let them turn me against you." In that coffee shop, surrounded by oblivious customers enjoying their normal day, my brother and I truly saw each other, perhaps for the first time in our adult lives. The conversation that followed was painful but necessary. Jake admitted his resentment of my closer relationship with our grandfather and my financial success. I acknowledged my occasional impatience with his life choices and unwillingness to truly understand his struggles as a parent. Jake offered to testify on my behalf to tell the court about our parents' true motivations and the development plans they had hidden from everyone. "I do not want your house, Marcel," he said, as we were leaving. "I never did. I just wanted Mom and Dad approval. I am sorry it took me so long to see what that cost us both." The courtroom showdown came 2 weeks later. My parents looked shocked when they saw Jake sitting on my side of the courtroom. Their attorney requested a delay, which the judge denied. The evidence we presented was overwhelming. My grandfather's doctor testified about his mental competence. Meredith, the caregiver, explained how her statements had been misrepresented. The video of my grandfather speaking clearly about his wishes was played for the court. When my parents took the stand, their story began to unravel. My mother had an emotional breakdown when confronted with evidence of their gambling debts and development plans, claiming they were just exploring options. My father remained stubbornly defiant, insisting he knew what was best for the family and that my grandfather would have changed his mind if he had lived to see Jake's children. The judge was unimpressed. He not only ruled in my favor, confirming the validity of my grandfather's will, but also ordered my parents to pay my legal fees and a penalty for filing false statements with the court. Their expression of stunned disbelief as the verdict was read would have been satisfying if the whole situation were not so heartbreaking. The months following the court victory were both healing and transformative. My first action was changing every lock in the house and installing a comprehensive security system. I spent weekends restoring the garden that had been trampled during the attempted takeover, planting new flowers, and rebuilding my grandfather's old bird bath that had been damaged. Though Jake and I had reconciled, rebuilding trust takes time. I started small, inviting his family for Sunday dinners once a month. I helped him find an affordable 3-bedroom house in a good school district not far from mine. I even contributed to the down payment this time with clear written terms so there could be no misunderstandings. With my parents, the path forward was more complicated. I was not ready to forgive, but I did not want to close the door entirely. I sent them a letter explaining that, while I needed distance, I would be open to a relationship in the future if they could acknowledge the harm they had caused and make genuine amends. So far, they have not responded, but I have made peace with that possibility. To honor my grandfather's memory, I created a small memorial garden in the backyard with a bench beside his favorite apple tree. There, I often sit in the evenings, feeling his presence and wisdom surrounding me. I also began hosting neighborhood gatherings, opening the home to create new memories and connections, just as he would have wanted. Perhaps the most unexpected outcome was the foundation I established with part of my savings and a portion of my annual bonus. The Edward James Foundation provides legal assistance to seniors updating their wills and estate plans, ensuring their wishes are properly documented and protected. It feels right to transform this painful experience into something that might prevent others from facing similar situations. On a personal level, the betrayal forced me to confront painful truths about family dynamics I had long ignored. Through therapy and reflection, I began processing not just the recent events, but a lifetime of subtle manipulation and favoritism. I learned that setting boundaries is not selfish, but necessary for healthy relationships. I discovered I could trust people again, but carefully and with appropriate safeguards. My circle of friends expanded as I connected with neighbors and colleagues in more meaningful ways. Many stepped up with support during the worst of the legal battle, bringing meals, offering encouragement, or simply providing companionship during dark moments. Honoring another passion of my grandfather, I began volunteering at a community center teaching basic carpentry to kids. Working with young people who were eager to learn and create reminded me of my own childhood lessons in his workshop. It brought joy back into my life when I needed it most. I even started dating again after years of focusing solely on my career. Rachel, a landscape architect I met while renovating the garden, values family, but defines it through actions rather than obligation. Our relationship is built on mutual respect and honest communication, a refreshing change from the manipulation I had grown accustomed to in family interactions. Through all of this, the house has transformed from a contested asset into a true home that feels completely mine. Every room holds memories of my grandfather, but now they are joined by new experiences that belong solely to me. I find comfort in maintaining the craftsmanship he valued, while adding modern touches that reflect my own style. This journey has taught me that family is indeed defined by actions, not blood. The people who truly care for us support our growth and happiness, not just their own interests. They respect boundaries and celebrate our successes without jealousy or conditions. I still feel my grandfather's presence throughout the house, especially in his workshop, which I have carefully preserved and now use for my own projects. Sometimes, when working late at night, I swear I can hear his gentle reminder to measure twice, cut once. In those moments, I know he would approve of how I defended his legacy and my right to it. The most valuable inheritance is not a house or any material possession. It is the strength to stand up for what is right, the wisdom to recognize manipulation, and the courage to protect your boundaries even when those challenging them share your blood. That is the true legacy my grandfather left me, worth far more than any property deed. Have you ever had to stand your ground against family who felt entitled to what was rightfully yours? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments. Our relationship is built on mutual respect and honest communication, a refreshing change from the manipulation I had grown accustomed to in family interactions. Through all of this, the house has transformed from a contested asset into a true home that feels completely mine. Every room holds memories of my grandfather, but now they are joined by new experiences that belong solely to me.